So we're going to be continuing our sermon today through Unified Church. And I think all of us would agree, like whenever we come to church, whenever we think of finding a church, when you're looking for a church, when you start coming to church, one of the things you want is you want to find a unified church. Like this is something that we all want. But the secret behind a unified church, they don't just happen. They don't just happen to exist. But oftentimes what there is there's a group of people who are working hard and striving towards having a unified church. And so even what you see here, you walk into, and it always amazes me on a Sunday morning how many cars are in the parking lot before it's even 10 o'clock, 30 minutes before the service, of all the people that it takes to come here and to make all of this happen. And we want to be able to come here and worship, but it also takes a lot of people serving in a lot of different ways and caring about people in different ways. We're going to be looking at that today. So yesterday, I know a few of others in this room were there also, is my daughter's, this is our, it just wasn't yesterday, but this season, I have two daughters who are in cheerleading and dance and all those kind of things, and like, it's recital season. Like, I don't know why they don't spread these things out more during the year, but like, I'm going to like these concerts, recitals, and yesterday was one of the big ones, which for us local people, the Shelley's Dance Company thing. And it was making me laugh because I went to the Saturday afternoon one, and there were girls coming in, and they were stripping out of their softball clothes or their soccer clothes as they were coming in to come and dance. And to figure out and learn how to dance. And it's so cute, and dad's carrying little baseball bats and all that kind of stuff because they're going from one thing to the next. And that's so much fun as a kid, isn't it? And I love that for kids, and I feel like we've lost that a little bit, but I digress. But for kids to be able to just explore, who am I? What am I? What am I good at? You know, and it's so much fun as a little kid that they can go and they can sign up for all these different things. Maybe I'm a soccer player. I'm going to sign up and be a soccer player. And they go try to play soccer and run around. They get to go do baseball. We put them in a dance class and they get to, you know, do dance and see maybe I'm a ballerina or a dancer. Or then we put them in karate or taekwondo or really cool things like wrestling. And they get to say, okay, maybe this is me. And we give them these opportunities to try all these different things and ask, who am I? What am I good at? What do I like doing? What do I want to spend my time doing? And then as we get older, we refine those things into discovering who we are. It's the same thing as a Christian. As a Christian, whenever you become a Christian, when you become part of a church, you start asking those questions in a different way. Who am I? Who am I? What has God designed me to do? What do I have? And what do I bring? What am I able to do within this context? And one thing is that we believe is that God has given everybody special gifts. Everybody, if you are here and you are part of Valley Light Church, it isn't by accident that you are here, but God has brought you here because you have something that the body needs. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. And we are going to be in Romans chapter 12, starting in verse 3. Romans chapter 12, starting in verse 3. Devin, can you grab my water? I should have brought it up with me. I'm sorry. This is my beautiful wife, for those of you who don't know. I know. That was very sweet of you guys. She's very nice. This is Paul writing a letter to a church in Rome, and he's writing this letter to them to give them some teaching, some instructions. There's a lot of theology in this letter, but in this particular passage, he's telling them like, hey, God's pulled you guys together as a church, and this is what it looks like to function. This is part of what it looks like to be unified as a church. So Romans chapter 12, starting in verse 3, it says, for by the grace given to me, I tell everyone among you not to think of himself more highly than he should think. Instead, think sensibly as God has distributed a measure of faith to each one. Now, as we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function, in the same way, we who are many are one body in Christ and individually members of one another. According to the grace given to us, we have different gifts. If prophecy, use it according to the proportion of one's faith. If service, use it in the service. If teaching, in teaching. If exhorting, in exhortation. Giving with generosity, leading with diligence, showing mercy with cheerfulness. Let's pray. God, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the teachings that you've given us, that we can understand you more clearly and understand how we fit within your grand plan. In your holy name I pray. Amen. So as we look at this passage of scripture, and there's common themes that Paul uses in many of these different letters that he's writing to these different churches throughout the New Testament. But he starts off here with talking about humility again. We've talked about this before in the sermon series, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. But it is important as you think about how we connect together as a church and being a unified church, that each of us individually and collectively need to stay grounded. We need to stay humble in who we are. You know, what it looks like to be humble, and we've talked about this before, is it's not to think less of yourself. And sometimes we think the definition of humility is I become less and I think less of who I am and I see myself as smaller. That's not necessarily true, but what Paul's talking about here is thinking rightly about yourself. In some ways to see yourself as less because you're aware that this is not my strength, this is not who I am, not to see yourself as too highly, but to think rightly of yourself. To, if you do have a gift, as you do have something that you're good at, to say, I am good at this. I am able to do this. I am able to provide this. Other people need this from me, and to be able to do that and to have that confidence, but also not to think of yourself more highly than you should. And in a lot of ways, in the way Paul is using this here, is humility is the opposite of pride. And pride does a couple of things. One, it overestimates who we are. We tend to start to see ourselves as something that may not necessarily be true, and we overestimate what we bring. It also underestimates others' value. If you start to be prideful and see yourself as this, then you have a tendency to start to underestimate the value of other people are bringing because you see yourself here and you start to see them as here. But humility and being grounded means that you see yourself correctly and others. And it also creates an attitude where we start competing with other people instead of contributing. We see other people, we want to be better than them. The other thing it can do, and I think this is dangerous within a church, is it creates consumers instead of serving. I come to church, what can church do for me? Instead of I come to church so that way I can be used to love on other people and I can use my gifts within this context. But in everything, we need to be functioning with grace and looking at our gifts, our opportunity, our influence, and our abilities and how they can be used within the church. So in the next couple of verses, we talks about being connected. And Paul loves this imagery of a body, and I like it too. It's this idea that a body functions, but not every part of the body is equal, and not every part of the body does the same thing, but every part of the body is necessary and functions together. You know, if you've ever injured something, especially if you're a runner, an athlete, something like that, or maybe you're just somebody who walks, and you've injured something, like it's not uncommon that something else starts to hurt. You know, you hurt your toe, which then leads to your hip hurting. Or I don't know, it's maybe something that only happens after you turn like a certain age. But our bodies are designed to work together. Whenever one part of the body stops functioning the way it's supposed to work, then it creates a stress load on the other parts of the body. And those other parts of the body have to start overcompensating for it. But God has designed our body to work together, and every part of the body has a particular role to play. And he's designed it that way, and he gives each person within this church, everybody at Valley Light Church, has a particular role to play. God has given you something, and you have a specific role to play. And one of the questions you need to be asking yourself is, what is my role? What is my part of the body? How is it I can be serving within this? Because if you're not using your gifts, if you're not using the things that God's given you, if you're not using the ways that God has specifically designed and created you, then that means somebody else is carrying a weight that maybe they shouldn't be carrying. And so whenever I start to see burnout within a church, or I start to see burnout within a certain set of volunteers, there's one of two things is true. One, as a church, we've started to do something that we weren't supposed to be doing. And sometimes we need to reevaluate and say, maybe we took this on. We thought we were supposed to be doing this, but maybe this is something that we shouldn't be doing. We're not the right body for this. We don't have the right people involved to do this, and maybe we need to take a step back. But where you see people getting burnt out, where you see people getting stressed, where they're struggling to accomplish those things, the other part, this may be true. Somebody in the church isn't stepping up to do their part and is putting too much strain on somebody else. And I want to tell you, like at Valley Light Church, one of the things I love about our church is built upon people that jump up and serve. Like if it's your first time here, I'm just going to warn you, and it's really neat. And it's really cool, but it may be a little shocking for you. As soon as we sing our last song, everything starts changing. Like everybody's going to grab their chair and they're going to put on a rack. We've never made an announcement to do this. We've never said actually, sometimes we give announcements not to put your chairs up. But we've never told people to put their chairs up because it's just who we are as a church. The service ends, chairs start going up, people start putting things in, people start grabbing what they can, they start helping put things up in different areas, and it takes a huge load off of so many people, and I love that about our church. And whenever we started in the early days, like we're only 2.5 years old, it was so neat because we had a lot more people start coming early on than what we had anticipated. And we panicked. We're like, how are we going to handle all these people that are coming? And it was in week 2, week 3, week 4. People have only been coming to our church for 4 weeks. We're like, hey, it looks like you guys could use some help. I have a gift. I have a talent. I can step up and I can help in that area. And that's who we are from the beginning. And I love that about our church because it represents what I think Paul's talking about here in the next section is give what you've got. Give what you've got. That's where I want to spend a lot of time this morning. Is Paul talks about different gifts. He talks about the body and how there's many parts to the body. And then in verse 6, he starts to break down what some of these different parts can look like. I don't believe his list here is exhaustive, but he's just trying to make a point of what this looks like within the church. And he says here, if you have different gifts, some of you have a gift of prophecy, use it according to the proportion of one's faith. If that's the gift that you have is service, then use it in service. If your gift is teaching and God's gifted you in teaching, do you know what Paul tells you to do? Teach. You guys are getting the idea here. This isn't real complicated. If exhorting is giving compliments, being nice, building other people up. We have several people really good at this. If it is exhorting, then what are you supposed to do? Exhortation. You're supposed to be about lifting people up, encouraging other people. I like this next one. If it's giving, if God has given you and blessed you with the ability to give and the time to give financially, he said, then do it with generosity, if leading with diligence and showing mercy and cheerfulness. You guys, you see, it's like I think so often we have a tendency in a lot of different areas to look at what we have and to think, oh, this belongs to me. This is mine. God gave me a gift, and this is my gift. So often the things that we have and who God has created you to be isn't just for your benefit, but rather it's so that it can be a benefit to others. And one of the specific areas that plays out is in church. How can we all work together to be a unified church and serving one another? Like, our end goal is making Jesus unignorable. Like, we love West Valley, we love Magna, and we want everybody in West Valley and Magna to have a church that they can come to and attend. And it takes a lot of different people with a lot of different giftings to do that. And one of the ones he talks about in here is giving. We don't talk about money in here a lot. We don't talk about giving a lot. But I do think it's something that is important for the church. And we are thankful that as a church right now, financially, we're doing okay. Like, there's money coming in. It covers our bills. But we are a church that we've referred to ourselves as a non-denominational church, which means there's not a big magic bucket of money that comes from somewhere else. Whenever we provide the programs for the kids in the park, that takes money. And that's money that you guys give to Jesus, that we receive from Jesus, that we use to help with the kids. Meeting in this Catholic Gymnasiatorium costs money for us to be able to do. Like, we keep our setup pretty minimal and pretty tight, but these TVs and speakers and different things cost money. And one of our boxes we use to roll stuff in and out with, the wheel keeps falling off, and we have to pull some money from that to put another wheel on it, or I don't know, we have to figure out a way to fix that thing. It's difficult when the wheels fall off. But it comes from that. But every dollar that we receive has come either because somebody in this church or somebody in another church has given what they have, what God has given them, and they've given a portion of that back to Jesus. And then we've been able to receive that. And so don't miss that. Like, there's finances, that kind of stuff matter. And so for all of you guys who give on a regular basis, thank you so much. And for some of you, it may be something that you need to start. We recommend 10% of what you bring in income, but we know that that takes time sometimes to build up. Like, not everybody can just turn on the spigot and say, I have an extra 10%. For some of you, you make that decision whenever you go buy a car, whenever you go buy a house, when you're looking at your rent and different decisions, whenever you get that pay raise, instead of going and increasing the kind of things that you're doing, you know, until we can give that money to the church, then we don't take more for ourselves. Because what we have has come from Jesus, and we are going to give that back to him, because it's not truly ours until we use it well to his glory. But all of that applies to our gifting as well. And I think so often we underestimate what God has given us. And the value of what God has given us can be used in his hands. And the way he can make that, what may seem like a modest gift to us, may seem like a modest talent that we have, the ability to say hi to people on a Sunday morning and remember their names. It may not mean much to us, but it means something to somebody coming in for the second, third time, that you remember their names. And we have areas in our church where we need people to serve. Devin, you want to take those little half pieces of paper? All right, Johnny, can you help her? And maybe Robin, can you help her also? Can you pass these out? Everybody take one of these little things right here. This is just a list of different areas. Actually, Robin, can you hand me one of those real quick so I can reference it? Okay. So we're going to be handing these around. We do this a couple of times a year. But this is different ways that, different areas of the church that we need volunteers to serve. Our preference is that our volunteers only serve once a month. We have several volunteers that serve much more than once a month. Some of them serve more than once a month because we don't have other people serving. Some of them serve more than once a month because they just love doing it. And as they serve, they see God blessing them, and they want to be a blessing to others, what God has blessed them with. But I want to be able to make it to where we don't have to put too much strain on any of our volunteers. And so I'm going to go through some of these. I may not go through all of them. But we put a lot of energy, and I hope you've benefited from it. But we put a lot of energy into our greeting team as people are walking in. And we try to put nice people there that are smiley and happy and greeting. If you're not a smiley, happy person, that may not be the best place for you to check the box. You know, We talked about humility, think rightly of yourself. If you look in the mirror and you're like, I am a smiley, happy person, feel free to check that one. I would love to help in that area. Now, if you do not naturally have a smiley, happy face, we do have sound and tech that we always need people in. Sorry, that wasn't nice, Devin. That wasn't. Oh, sorry. Okay, but we do have sound and tech, and it's like we train you. You come in. You don't have to know everything. You just need a willingness to learn it. Is that pretty accurate, Mike? And that they will train. They have a great system where you come in at one level and you slowly get to learn the different types of electronics, technology. And it makes it possible. We have people in our church right now who are at home and they can't come to church because of different illnesses and sicknesses and that kind of stuff, or different things happening in their life. We work with a lot of truckers that can't make it to church every Sunday because they're over the road. And so being able to broadcast this live stream, and it takes a lot of work to set this up every week. And so if you're interested in technology, that kind of stuff, helping those areas, check that box. Kids. For a growing church, kids is always going to be a need. I don't know if you guys knew this, but one of the things that Utahns are really good at is having babies. I know. We are a very fertile church. And so we always need more and more kids workers. Our hope is, especially in the kids area, because you miss so much of the service, our goal is that you only serve 24 hours a year. All right? That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for you to go back every Sunday, 24 hours a year. That is 2 hours a month, right? My wife's a math teacher. Yeah, 2 hours a month times 12, because that's how many months there are. Okay, 24. And you're like, I don't know if I can do this. All we're asking for is 24 hours a year to help with our kids. And feel free to check all of these. If you're like, I am willing to serve everywhere, check them all and we'll put you in kids. We'd appreciate that. Another one that's kind of become a growing need for us, our finance team's gotten a little low. We need somebody else on the finance team, all right? If you are trustworthy and you can count without using your fingers, is it okay if they use their fingers still, Ashley, or is it, okay. Okay, even if you use your fingers to count, calculator, then we could use your help on the finance team to help with counting the money, that kind of stuff. Something else is we could use somebody to help with the community group. We probably could use some more host homes where we can host the different community groups that we do during the spring and during the fall. And then teen volunteers. One of the things that's really cool about the teenagers aren't even in here, so we'll talk about them since they're not here. A lot of our kids' stuff that's able to make run is because we have our teenagers. They love to serve. And that's just kind of been a cultural thing that started from the beginning. We said either you can listen to me preach or you can teach little kids Bible stories. And I don't know if you've experienced the same thing I have over the years, but teaching somebody something else helps me learn it better. And so one of the great joys and blessings we've had as a church is our teenagers help with the kids. And so they're teaching those Bible stories and that kind of stuff to the kids. And we love that. So if you're a teenager, I don't think there are any teenagers in here, but if you have a teenager, we would love to get them plugged in serving as well. And then Monica is doing a great job with the worship team, and we appreciate you so much. But we could always use some more musicians. And so I've experienced this. This is true across the board. But something I've experienced as a pastor, and I've probably been guilty of this at different points in my life too. I have a gift. There's something I know I can do. I know I'm good at. This happened with us with instrumentalists before up here on the worship team, is they have something and they're waiting for somebody to ask them and be like, you look like you probably play a great saxophone. We would love for you to come on the worship team. Like, I don't know who you are sometimes. And so please, humbly, thinking rightly of yourself. Say, I can do this. God has given me the ability to help in this area. And I'm going to check this box and let the pastor, let the church know that I can serve in this capacity. Because as a church, who we are, what makes all of this happen every single Sunday are people who have the ability that God has given them, and they say, yes, I can, and they show up a little bit early. They do more than just sit here and soak in what other people are doing, but they start giving back, and you've been blessed because of it, and thank you so much to all of our volunteers for doing that. And maybe you need to be changing an area, so you want to check some boxes in there, because you're like, that's an area I may want to take on a little bit more, change the area I'm serving in, or maybe you want to start serving for the first time. If you cannot tell me in your heart right now, this is the role I play at Valley Light Church, then check some boxes. And then I didn't think about how we're going to collect these. How should I collect these? Yellow bucket, are they big enough? Okay. All right, fold them up and put them in the yellow bucket on your way out. And I'm probably not going to be the one following up with you. It's going to be Ashley Dahl following up, and she's nice and she's sweet. And you want to talk to Ashley Dahl. So filling that out, putting it on there is your way to get to talk to Ashley Dahl. But in wrapping all of this up and trying to put a little bow on this, I don't want you to feel pressured this morning. And I want you to hear me say this it almost feels weird saying this because so many of the people who are serving every Sunday so faithfully aren't even in here right now. They're in the back doing something else. So maybe they watch these things online later. We'll see. But thank you. It means so much to me that we looked at this and felt like God was putting something on our hearts to start something in this area. And we didn't know if we were alone in this or if there would be other people that would come around us that wanted a church in this area also. And for every single person that volunteers, you are a gift to me and my family. This church has been good for my girls. This church has been good for my family. And I want to thank you for the way you've ministered to us, the way you have used your gift and talents to be a blessing to us in particularly, and to making Jesus Unignorable my little corner of the world and giving us a place to be part of and be at church. And that only happens because of all of you serving in the ways that you do. Let's pray.